If we were in Scott Service's shoes, how would we build the Mariners lineup? Also, someone needs to do something about MLB The Show's player ratings. I mean, it's bad. That and more here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is Wednesday, April 6, 2022, and this is the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am your host, Titan Gonzalez, joined as always by my co-host, Colby Patnode. Be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Mariners, and you can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Be sure to also check out our Patreon, where we talk about the Mariners even more, and also get into some non-baseball talk twice a week. Visit patreon.com/control zone for more information on that. If you are interested, new episode coming out for all of our tiers later today. Be sure to check that out. And if this is your first time joining us here on Locked On Mariners, welcome to the show. If you like what you hear, give us a follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching us. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, give this video a like, tell your friends, tell your enemies, all that good stuff. We greatly appreciate it. We should mention that we are recording this episode on Tuesday, April the 5th. So things could change, but spring training is over. The Mariners just wrapped up their last spring training game against the Reds. Not a great performance by Chris Flexen. Got shelled for 7 runs. Jared Kelenic went yard again, though. 3rd straight game in a row, so he's hot going into the regular season. But the Mariners made some roster moves today. They're going to let Steven Souza Jr. walk, and he's going to look for an MLB opportunity elsewhere. Billy Hamilton has been reassigned to minor league camp along with some other guys, and now the Mariners camp roster at the time of this recording is at 32 guys, but 4 of those guys, Kyle Lewis, Evan White, Casey Sadler, and Ken Giles, they're not going to be on the roster due to injury. So we have a 28-man roster. And if you're watching us here on Locked On Mariners, here it is. But for those that are listening, it's Robbie Ray, Logan Gilbert, Marco Gonzalez, Chris Flex, and Matt Brash for the starting pitchers. Relievers, Matt Festa, Eric Swanson, Justice Sheffield, Johan Ramirez, Anthony Misevich, Sergio Romo, Andres Munoz, Drew's second rider, Diego Castillo, and Paul Sewald. Catchers, Tom Murphy, Luis Torrens, and Cal Raleigh. Infielders, Ty France, Adam Frazier, Eugenio Suarez, JP Crawford, Abraham Toro, and Dylan Moore. And then the outfielders, Jesse Winker, Julio Rodriguez, Mitch Haniger, and Jared Kelenic. Of course, things could change. There's been a lot of trades around the league over the last few days, and we know Jerry DiPoto loves to make trades, so there's a possibility that this might not actually be the 28-man roster that we see in Minnesota on Thursday or Friday, whenever that game is actually played. But Colby, what are your initial thoughts about the roster that we have here?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 3 catchers thing. That's just not something I was ever going to be on board with. Particularly since none of the 3 catchers can really play elsewhere. I mean, could they fake it at first base? Sure, I guess, but that doesn't really help you all that much. So I'm not a huge fan of the 3 catchers thing. I think it's just a wasted roster spot. And again, it's not like Cal Raleigh and Tom Murphy are so good that you want their bat around on the bench either. So it's not something I would do. I'm not a huge fan of carrying the 3 catchers. If one of them was like Austin Nola, who could play some first, could play some second, that type of thing, then sure, go ahead and do that. But I'm not a huge fan of that. And that's really the big one. I'm not surprised they carried 10 relievers. That's kind of what I had projected. I just didn't think they were going to carry 3 catchers. And I don't think they should have carried 3 catchers, but we learned, I think, on Monday that they were planning on doing that anyway. So no real surprises, but I don't like the 3 catcher thing. I'm not a huge fan of Dylan Moore over Billy Hamilton, but that's not really fair. It's more the 3rd catcher over Billy Hamilton or
the 10th
maybe
reliever. Yeah.
Right. Because again, in my original projections, I did have Dylan Moore still making the team, despite my noted disdain for Dylan Moore on this roster.
I think a lot of people that watched or listened to yesterday's episode got pretty familiar with that.
Yeah. So yeah, like I knew Moore was going to be on the roster. I'm fine with that. It's just Hamilton helps you a lot more than Dylan Moore does, at least for the role that those 2 guys are likely to play, which is late game defensive replacement and base stealer. Hamilton's just better at those spots, so Yeah, I think Hamilton should have made it. Is it like a big deal that he didn't? No. I mean,
No.
it's fine, but it would have been cool. He's a fun player, and I think he helps you off the bench more than Dylan Moore, and certainly more than probably Cal Raleigh was the catcher who would have had to have been sent down for this to work. Or you could have just DFA Tom Murphy, or maybe they're going to trade Tom Murphy, or who knows, or Luis Torrens even. So we'll see. But yeah, overall, not too surprised. Just a little bit bummed about Billy Hamilton, but other than that, not really anything that shocking to me.
Yeah. Hamilton not making the roster is really my only issue with it as well. But again, that's not even that much of an issue. It's a nitpick. Let's just call it for what it is. But it would be nice considering where the outfield is right now with Winker and Haniger not being good defensive outfielders. And really, we don't know what Julio is in center field, and we know what Jared Kelenic is in center field, and that's not a center fielder. But Julio, we still, there's so much uncertainty there. So it's like, if Julio is also kind of just fringe average in center field, which maybe he's not, maybe he's better than we think, but who knows? It would be nice to have a guy that can actually play center field. And I feel like at least as a late game substitution and a late game pinch runner and all this stuff, because I mean, Billy Hamilton would be maybe your best base stealer / best base runner. Next with Julio and Dylan Moore. So that, like, I know there's the argument of, well, he's not going to contribute that much to really justify having a spot on the 28-man roster. But look, it's only for a month. You don't have Kyle Lewis yet. Kyle Lewis is probably not going to be able to come back until the start of May when rosters go back to 26, and then you can handle it at that point. But Hamilton, gives you something I feel that's more valuable than Matt Festa, for example, or Eric Swanson, someone that's probably only going to throw a couple innings a week, and probably those innings are not going to be, of any certain consequence or anything. They're probably going to be doing mop-up duty for the most part. So I think that Hamilton would have been more valuable considering what this team's weaknesses are. And look, I get it. I know you want to stockpile on relievers right now because you're trying to limit innings because of what happened with the lockout and the timing of everything, and trying to ease pitchers in. They're not gonna stretch out starters too long, especially someone like Matt Brass who's young, who's going to be on an innings cap and all that, and they don't want to double up on relievers on back-to-back nights and stuff like that as well. But still, it's just I don't know. I don't really personally see how Matt Festa or Eric Swanson or Anthony Misevich is really more valuable to your team right now than Billy Hamilton is. It's just, that doesn't really line up for me. The three catcher thing, I get why they're doing it, because for some reason they really want to get Cal Raleigh at the big league level and get him action at the big league level, and not let him go back to AAA and work on some things. I guess they assume or they believe that he is ready for that challenge, and he's made progress over the course of this offseason to take on that challenge again. I don't think he was ready for it at the end of last year. I didn't think he was a big leaguer at all last year. But I get it from that standpoint. I get it from the Torrens standpoint, because you can't send him down, and he's too valuable a hitter no matter how bad his defense may be. And he looked fine this spring. We talked about that quite a bit. Honestly, I'm at the point though now where I'm like, how much worse is Cal Raleigh than Tom Murphy? Like, after seeing Murphy this spring, defensively, he was not impressive at all. The at-bats were non-competitive for the most part, aside from that home run that he hit off of reigning NL Cy Young Award winner Corbin Burns the other night, which was wild to me. But other than that, yeah, I don't really, I don't see a future on this roster for Tom Murphy either. And maybe that's too guys. Maybe at the end of this month, when Kyle Lewis is healthy and they got to go back to 26 guys, both of the guys that are gonna get axed from the 28-man roster, we should mention here, are gonna have to be relievers, because they have to get back down to 13 pitchers. They're carrying 15, and the rule is going to be that they can only carry 13 on May 2nd, or starting May 2nd. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I would think that by the time that Lewis is ready to come back, the person that is going to get axed off of the roster to make room for him is going to be one of the catchers, and it's probably either Raleigh getting sent down or Murphy just getting outright cut.
Yeah. We still don't really know how the Mariners feel about Torrenz's defense. I would think that because they're carrying the third catcher, they might not trust it quite yet, which I guess is fair. But honestly, I couldn't distinguish really between Raleigh, Murphy, and Torrens behind the plate this spring, at least defensively. And we just know Torrens is a better hitter than those two guys right now.
Right.
Could Raleigh surpass him eventually? Sure. I mean, could Murphy? No, he can't. We've seen enough of Murphy to know who he is, and we know that 2019 is the outlier here. But yeah, we'll see what they decide to do there. But yeah, they're going to have to send down the two relievers on May 2nd, and then they'll have to make a decision on Lewis shortly thereafter. And to me, I think the ideal thing would be that Raleigh and Torrens both show that they are capable of just being big league catchers, and then you cut Tom Murphy, you DFA Tom Murphy, or you work out a small trade, or who knows. Murphy is a guy who could be traded before opening day, in theory. I know the Brewers are out there looking for catchers right now, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, for now, it's my only gripe, really, is the three catchers. But it kind of had to be Raleigh or bust. Otherwise, they were exposing Murphy or Torrens to waivers, and they weren't going to clear. So
yeah,
I kind of get it, but.
If you're gonna let one of those guys go, you're gonna want to try and get something for them, at least for Torrens. Murphy, frankly, I could live with him, just with them DFAing him and dealing with that, because I don't think whatever they would get for him is gonna be all that significant. So yeah, but we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. They got time though. They have a little over 3 weeks to figure this thing out and see how does Torrens' defense translate and all that stuff. So now that we kind of have a better idea of what the roster is going to look like, you and I are going to craft lineups. You're going to do against left-handed pitching. I'm going to do against right-handed pitching. This is what we would do if we were in Scott's service issues. This is not what we think the Mariners are going to do, because I think we already have a pretty good idea of what the Mariners are going to do, what those lineups are going to look like. For reference, look at the last couple of lineups that they fielded in spring training. That's probably going to be the lineup for them. But you and I, before we went on the show here, before we hit record, we put together. You put together a lineup against left-handed pitching. I put together a lineup against right-handed pitching. Here they are. If you are not watching on YouTube, if you're just listening, I'll list them here. Colby's against left-handed pitching is Mitch Haniger leading off, playing right field. Adam Frazier hitting in the 2-hole, playing second base. Ty France hitting third, playing first. Luis Torrens DHing and hitting fourth, hitting cleanup. Julio Rodriguez hitting fifth and playing center field. Eugenio Suarez hitting sixth at third base. Tom Murphy hitting seventh and playing catcher. Jared Kelenic hitting eighth, playing left field, and JP Crawford hitting ninth and playing shortstop. Let's start with yours here. Why did you construct it like this? And no Jesse Winker in this lineup.
No, Winker's going to play against lefties some, but I feel like we have a decent enough sample size to know that it's just not going to come from him against lefties. At least not something you want. You don't want him to get like 70% of the starts against lefties. There are going to be times where you just have to play him because other guys need a break, or maybe you just like the matchup. So yeah, I just think I went for this is who I think it should look like a majority of the time, right, against lefties. So yeah, no Winker. But the nice thing about having Winker out of the lineup is that you have that hammer on the bench for right-handed pitching later, particularly late in games. It's part of the reason why I put Torrens fourth, is to just kind of have that spot kind of come up a little bit sooner in the lineup. So yeah, no Winker, but other than that, I feel pretty good about the rest of it. Frazier's kind of the tough one here. I thought about just leaving him at leadoff. He hits lefties fine despite being a lefty. 107 WRC plus. So do I hit him lead off? Do I hit him second? Do I hit him fifth or sixth? I went with second, just to kind of to mix up the righties a little bit there. And also because I just like the contact profile for to play off of Haniger, who, for some of his struggles last year, absolutely mashed lefties. He hit 286, 349, 571. That's a 148 WRC plus. He was basically Jesse Winker against lefties, which is obviously very, very good. So Haniger in the leadoff spot, Terens hitting cleanup. It was one of those, do I hit Terens third? Do I hit him second? I thought about hitting Terens second, DHing. He's also very good against lefties. So it's just one of those things where I was trying to get the righty bats in the lineup. This is a way to get Terens in the lineup regularly. Tom Murphy, one of the only things he can do is he hits lefties okay, especially compared to righties. So put him at catcher, and then just get as many right-handed bats in there as you can. Kelnick, we don't know if he can hit lefties. Jury's still out there. I think ultimately he can, but that could also be a spot where you slide in Winker. If Winker's just better against lefties than Kelnick, then you can make that swap. It's kind of tough. Do I put Toro at second? But Frazier, like I said, Frazier hits lefties just fine. So I didn't feel like there was a need to bench him against most lefties. So I just felt like, this lineup gives me a lot of thump at the top and in the middle. It also, I believe it makes it a little easier to kind of, move your pinch hitters into the right spots. So Winker can hit for Terens, or Toro can hit for Suarez, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So I really struggled with what to do with Frazier. I almost hit him lead off. I almost hit him sixth, but ultimately I just decided to keep him in the second spot. Makes a lot of contact. Haniger, not only gets on base against lefties, but he hits for a ton of power. So, I guess ideally double, single through the right side, and then you get France and Terens, and just, to clean that up. So that's kind of the thought process behind it, but it's kind of nice to have a guy, like JP Crawford, also not severe lefty righty splits. So that's nice. The Mariners have a couple of guys who can hit lefties just fine. You don't need to platoon them. I know they hope Winker is one of those guys. I'll believe it when I see it, but he'll get a shot. He'll get a shot. Don't worry about that. But just this is just like the most optimized lineup I could come up with against righties. And I did think about Ty France in this 2-hole. I did think about Terens in the 2-hole. I even thought about Julio. But I think we need to see what Julio does against any big league pitching before we start moving them up in the order. So, but overall, I kind of like the way it looks. And again, in that scenario, your bench is still Dylan Moore, Abraham Toro, Jesse Winker, and Cal Raleigh. You can do some fun things with that bench. So I like the way the lineup finished up.
Yeah, it was hard for me because I wanted to get pretty aggressive with Julio as well, but I ended up putting him just kind of smack dab in the middle of my lineup. Before I get into my lineup real quick, again, you're listening to Locked On Mariners. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. And just a reminder to check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts, just like us. All right, so let's get into my lineup here against righties. I have Jesse Winker leading off. I subscribe to the idea that you should be hitting your best hitter in the leadoff spot to maximize plate appearances, to ensure that they get the most plate appearances on your team. And Jesse Winker is your best hitter, particularly against right-handed pitching, and is one of the best hitters in all of baseball when it comes to hitting right-handed pitching. I have him DHing, though, because I frankly don't want his glove out in left field. I like his glove, or I like Haniger's glove a little bit better than Winker's. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, it does appear that, at least based on the last two lineups, that the Mariners do plan to kind of rotate Haniger and Winker through DH, kind of maybe not like every other day, but it does feel like those are going to be their two primary DH options on most days.
Yeah, and that's good. I would lean Haniger over Winker, but that's not really saying much. I like Haniger's arm a little bit better than Winker, but that's really the only reason there for that. So hitting in the 2-hole, Adam Frazier. great on base guy. He's going to make a lot of contact. He's not going to strike out. I want him at the top of my lineup. He's not one of my best hitters necessarily. I would put France, Haniger, even Julio maybe over him, just in terms of rankings. But yeah, I want that guy that can get on base consistently and hit for a high average near the top of my lineup. Ty France hitting third, playing first base. Mitch Haniger hitting cleanup and playing right field. Julio hitting fifth, playing center. And then here's where I kind of ran into a little bit of a conundrum, if you will, in the sixth hole, because I did want to put Eugenio Suarez in this lineup, but I also wanted to get as many lefty hitters as possible in this lineup. And that's a bit hard when the Mariners are predominantly right-handed. And there isn't a lot of positional flexibility with the guys that hit left-handed, and really the clearest spot to do that was at third base, and to put Abraham Toro there instead of Suarez. And look, yeah, I'm sacrificing a bit of power there, but I also still have pop in this lineup with Winker, with France, with Haniger, with Rodriguez, with Torrens, who I'll get to in a second, Kelnick, of course. But yeah, I'm going Toro 6, playing third, Torrens catching. I'll even if he's bad, I'll deal with it for the bat. Jared Kelnick hitting eighth, playing left field, and then JP, of course, hitting ninth, playing shortstop. I think that's probably, it's so hard to get both Suarez and Toro in the lineup when also having Torrens and Haniger and Kelnick and Julio, and it's like, I don't want to take Haniger out of the lineup, right? I don't want to take Winker out of the lineup. I don't want to take a lefty and Kelnick out of the lineup. So it was really Suarez or bust there, and Suarez obviously a righty, so I'm taking a righty out, putting a lefty in, or a switch hitter in rather. And I have Suarez off the bench anyway. So if they bring in a lefty or what have you, I can bring him in at that point. So I think that's probably the most optimized lineup for when facing right-handed pitching. Again, though, they're going to lead off Adam Frazier or JP Crawford. It looks like it's going to be Frazier with Crawford in the 9-hole or the 8-hole, and that's how they're gonna do it. Again, personally, I would have the best hitter on my ball club lead off, maximize his plate appearances. That would be Winker. That would be Haniger or France. Really, you could make the argument for any of those three guys hitting lead off, and I'll go, yeah, sure, absolutely. I totally understand that. But Winker, I think, is the most obvious fit here because of his potential against right-handed hitters. So, MLB The Show 2022 just came out on officially. It came out for early access about 4 days ago, but it's out now on all platforms and all that stuff. We are not sponsored. Hashtag not sponsored, by the way. But it is out, and I have issues with it, and I think so do you, Colby. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, that is. But not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. And all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein. So replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. So go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Now compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And there's a ton of amazing flavors that Built Bar has to offer, including mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. And at Built Bar, they are all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. It's crazy. So go to Built.com, try one for yourself, try a bunch for yourself. There you have tons of flavors, like I mentioned. Use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. Again, go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, that's LOCKED15 for 15% off your order. So, again, MLB The Show 2022. is now out on all the consoles. Do not get it on Nintendo Switch. It looks terrible and runs horribly, as to be expected with sports games on Nintendo Switch. It's not a very powerful system. But I downloaded it through Xbox Game Pass today. Wanted to give it a try. I actually haven't played a game yet. I wanted to look through the rosters because the player ratings last year were questionable, to say the least. And unfortunately, they are about in the same place that they were at the end of last year this time around as well. So to best illustrate that, I think I should read off a tweet here that I sent out from my Twitter earlier today. According to MLB The Show 2022, Julio Rodriguez and Luis Torrens, who are both 67 overall, are worse than or equal to the following players: Brian O'Keefe, Jake Anchia, Dom Thompson-Williams, who's no longer with the organization, Mike Ford, Sam Haggerty, Ian McKinney, Steven Souza Jr., Asher Wojciechowski, Patrick Frick, and Tanner Kerwer, who was minor league Rule 5 guy that they drafted this past winter. There's also Darren McCacken, Anthony Misevich, Nick Margavicius, Justice Sheffield, and Evan White. And maybe the worst of all, though, is that, and look, at the top of the roster, it's fine. You got Robbie Ray, you got Diego Castillo, you got Mitch Haniger. That's fine. I have no issues with that. But rated at 81 and 80 overall, respectively, is Dylan Moore and Tom Murphy, who slot in the top 10 most or highest rated players on the Mariners in MLB The Show 2022. This is something. It's certainly something that they've done here. Thankfully, users around the world can create their own rosters for you to download, and I will certainly be doing that because Joe Doyle, Prospects Live, Lookout Landing, he does a
noted Dylan Moore lover.
Noted Dylan Moore lover. So of course he's going to leave his overall at 81. Sure. Might even bump it up to a 91, quite frankly.
But you got to stay on brand. You got to stay.
Well, in that universe, Dylan Moore has changed everything about his swing. But Joe and a bunch of other people around the world, they rebalance the game basically for Sony Studios, which I don't know what they're doing there when they're balancing their game. It is not balanced properly. But yeah, man, this is why I personally wouldn't spend money, because I just got it as part of my Game Pass subscription, for free. Same. So, but this is why I wouldn't spend money on the game right now, because it's in a rough state, and right now, there isn't enough time yet for people to rebalance the roster themselves. Yep. So, are you still gonna play it? Because I'm gonna try it today, but I don't feel very motivated to play it when it's built so weird like this.
Yeah, I do wonder, as somebody who's been an Xbox guy, and I'm not a big gamer at all. I never had an Xbox One. I went from an Xbox 360 straight to a S, at whatever the small one is. But I never had the show, right? You don't have the show on Xbox, so I get the show last year and I played. It's okay. Again, Dylan Moore is still an 81, which really okay. So yeah, there were some gripes, but it was okay. I wasn't blown away. And based on what I've read the reviews so far, is it kind of seems like they just made the same game but changed some uniforms. You know what I mean? So is this becoming the new Madden? Because that's depressing if it is.
Sports games in general are doing this, by the way.
They're all kind of trending towards this, pay to win type of, road to the show or whatever.
Well, a lot of the focus is on the card stuff, right? Like Madden. Yeah, Madden Ultimate Team, and now they have Diamond Dynasty in the show. That's been going on for 5 or 6 years. Yeah, so all these developers, they focus all their energy into those modes, and they really don't flesh anything out. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the franchise mode issues, but someone traded nothing for Juan Soto. It's ridiculous.
I'm probably going to first thing I'm going to do is probably just nerf Dylan Moore a little bit. I don't know what his contact numbers are, but they're too high. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. Probably bump up Julio a little bit, mess with a few settings here and there. But yeah, I saw some of the reaction today, particularly in regards to Julio's low ranking and also Dylan Moore and Tom Murphy's ridiculous ranking. Can't say I'm surprised, but yeah, I'll probably give it a play. It's usually pretty good.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I did a home run derby online with Julio. Hit 14 bombs, still got eliminated. Yeah, I'm not great at it. Plus, I was doing, I had to do the zone hitting or whatever, and I am not great at it. I am really not good at it. If you want to play with us, maybe we could do a CTZ Locked On Mariners MLB The Show live stream or something, and you will absolutely destroy us. There is a very good shot that we are going to get no hit, maybe even perfected by you, if we went one-on-one. Man, I wonder what a game between us would look like. That is a scary thought. Yeah. Oh boy. It's really hard, man. Also the meter throwing. I can't get it down. Maybe this year it'll be better for me, but meter throwing, I either hold the button too long or I just tap it and errors all over the place. It's yeah. It's safe to say that MLB The Show is not really my game, but hopefully the balancing gets fixed. I'm a franchise mode guy, so I want to play franchise mode. I want to do some simulations and stuff, make trades like I'm Jerry Dipoto. I assume you can still only throw like 3 trade pieces into one trade still, which is ridiculous. That's so stupid. There's more than 3 guys that go in one trade. That's honestly more common than not. But it's these are some things that hopefully maybe the studio will listen to podcasts like ours, take some notes, and make some really much needed changes. But probably not, because most of the focus is on Diamond Dynasty and all that stuff. Which, hey, I get why people like that, and that's cool if you like that. It's just not my thing. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our show. We had a little audio issue there towards the end. So if there was a weird cut, that's why. But thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Mariners. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dane Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez. That's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. And thank you again for making us your first listen of the day, just like you do here every day. Now make your second listen of the day Locked On MLB, where Paul Francis Sullivan, and please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the Major League's present and past. It's free wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. So have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.